So today we're going to be doing a Cat 2 Autoland into Sydney, runway 16 right. As you can see, we've put the decision height there, radio 101 feet above the ground. There's several things that happen on an Autoland which we need to announce or at least check for. Several of it, or quite a few things would have been checked during the approach preparation in the brief prior to the descent, but there are certain things that we need to check as they happen on the approach themselves, so I'll talk through them as they happen. You can see with the undulating terrain actually as we make our approach into Sydney, as the weather changes it can be quite bumpy. MSFS simulates that pretty well actually. So we've armed the approach here, we've engaged both autopilots as we're doing an Autoland, and we've captured the localizer. So you can see that we're localizer autopilot 1 and 2, Cat 3 dual. So although we're doing a Cat 2 approach, the actual capability of the aircraft is still beyond Cat 2 of Cat 3. The Cat 2 Autoland that we're doing is because that's a limitation of the actual airport. Although the wind's quite light at Sydney today, it's actually varying quite a bit. So you'll see the approach speed change actually as we make our final approach into Sydney, called ground speed mini. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. There we go, we've captured the glide slope now, so we're going to start bringing the speed back. Although the actual conditions today are pretty good, quite often on an Autoland you're actually rather conservative on your configuration and your approach to landing, so you can mainly just focus on the approach itself as opposed to the configuration and trying to make a streamlined operation. So taking the gear down here relatively early just to allow us to focus on the landing itself. So you'll see as we take the gear down there that once the gear goes down, it does a little self-check as it goes through, and you can see that on the accumulated pressure indication just there. Views are not bad going into Sydney either. So I might as well talk just for a moment while we have a second on ground speed mini, what I mentioned there. You can see that we're at our final approach speed already, that magenta target speed on the PFD on the left-hand side there. As the wind changes, the Airbus is quite clever that you'll see the approach speed change during the latter stages of the approach. The reason it does that is should we lose all of that wind element or mainly a headwind, which is helping us, then we're not going to, well, worst case, end up in a very low speed situation. So that you'll see as the headwind increases, the approach speed in fact actually increases just in case we did lose that headwind all of a sudden. So that's quite a clever feature of the Airbus, and that's called ground speed mini. So the first trigger that we're going to be checking for about 750 feet rad out is on the EWD, the upper ECAM we expect to see in magenta landing inhibit. And what that does is that will inhibit and prevent any minor failures from showing up on the ECAM as a distraction for landing. There we go, so that's landing inhibit that we're checking for. The next event will be below 400 feet and 350 feet. We'll expect to see land on the PFD in the FMAs at the top there. So there's land. The next we'll see about 50 feet will be flare. We'll then close the thrust levers when we hear retard. And on the rollout, you expect to see rollout announced at the top there where it currently says land. So although the wind's quite light, you can see that swinging around quite a bit and you can feel that just through the aircraft. So there's flare. Close the thrust levers. Touchdown. Roll out. The autopilot is still engaged at this point and it will maintain the centre line as we go down the runway.